What is up, Whale family, and welcome to Blockchain Beats, where we explore the pioneering artists taking audio and music to the next level of emerging tech and interactivity with NFTs. Our very special guest today is the Grammy Award-winning multi-platinum musician, producer, activist, entrepreneur, and curator of all things progressive and dope, Lupe Fiasco. Lupe, thanks for joining us today.
Yo, what up, Nytmare?
Yeah, full disclosure for the crowd, I actually messed up the first take of this, putting some stuff on screen that I shouldn't, so that's on me. My bad, everyone. But so hyped to have you here. I am a genuine old school hip hop fan from like way back in the day since I was a youngin'. So on a personal level, very hyped, and I know the community is too. Believe it or not, the whale community serves all kinds of folks, from collectors to artists to people that are just curious about the technology and what it's all about. So could you just give a brief synopsis, a little bit about you for those that may not be familiar?
Yeah, man, Lupe Fiasco, rapper. That's what I do for a living. I'm doing that since I was 17 years old. Been able to kind of tour the world and experience the music business when it was still analog, and then riding the wave into the transition to like digital. So like, before YouTube and like during YouTube and after YouTube, I've always kind of been abreast of the technological kind of advances and nascent things that kind of pop up, and being at the ground floor of things and being able to kind of see how they progress, how they interface and interact. So, in addition to just kind of being a rapper, also kind of being thrust into the new ways that, rap is communicated, the way that rap is kind of handled in the face of kind of technology. So really, really interesting that a lot of folks who are doing the arts recently have known it to be fully like a digital space, like fully computer space. But I mean, we had to, I come from an era where we were still recording on like analog tapes.
Right.
Our masters literally filled up a box as opposed to kind of filling up a thumb drive. So the ride has been interesting, and like I said, that was, almost, I'm going on 20 years being in the music business. And so like now at the edge of this NFT thing is another interesting kind of idea that's occurring, an interesting space that's kind of building before my eyes. So super interesting, man. But yeah,
definitely.
Just a rapper. That's all. Nothing special.
I think you're selling yourself a little short there. Like, you branched out into a lot of things lately. Like, I was even trying to catch up on all of it, and it was like a lot to take in. You have your residency at MIT, is that correct?
Yeah, my artist residence at MIT.
Okay.
I'm a Henry Crown Fellow. I sit on the board of a few things, a few tech companies and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm just a rapper as it relates to this conversation. It's probably the easiest way to go. But in terms of, me as a person, I do all kinds of shit, man. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, no, I was loving a little bit of that beaten path when I was taking a look at it,
Oh, yeah.
And even a Japanese cartoon, I wasn't even aware of that. I just got put onto that. So like you really go out there and experiment, which kind of lends itself well to this conversation for sure. It's funny that you talk about the journey from like analog to digital, because I remember at one point in my, paltry attempts at music, if I showed up with something I printed out or that I was typing on a computer, it was kind of clown. They were like, dude, where's your notebook? Like, what do you mean you sent something to someone online, right? It was kind of the inverse of what's going on now. I was just ahead of my time, and these guys are off base. But you've long been an advocate for like the potential of cryptocurrency. You're on record as talking about it in 2018 and likely prior. Could you walk us through a little bit your like exposure to crypto and how you got involved?
Yeah, there was this blog back in the day I used to follow, which is like this news blog, just like a WordPress junk, and it was called Cryptagon, and the guy or the person, I don't know if it was a guy or a gal who posted it, they would put up just random news and random things around the world, like just super duper random. And then one day, there was like the site had kind of switched over to like just one consistent theme, and it was cryptocurrency. And it was just kind of like, you know, the person running the blog just throwing up little articles about, hey, there's this new thing that's popping up, or there's this thing that's kind of coming to surface or coming to bear. And from what I know now, it was Bitcoin, right? And it was like he put up a link where you could like download like a wallet. You could download like, you know, whatever software to start mining stuff or whatever. And I downloaded it to my laptop, right? And, you know, lo and behold, I was like mining cryptocurrency. But as the story goes, you know, I wanted my internet to be faster. You know, I preferred the speed of my pornography versus you know, my ability to break down blocks. And so I took it, but then I think I left it up for maybe like a week. And then, you know, seeing the impact it had on my computer, I was like, you know, either I need to get a laptop that's just dedicated to do this, or, you know, I'm gonna just take it off my computer. So I wound up just taking it off my computer. So I deleted my wallet, deleted like the software and all that stuff to get my computer back. And it was kind of like, okay, that's it, you know, and kind of stepped away from it. It didn't seem like something that, you know, and especially me not really being in the community like that. It just seemed like something that was kind of more, here, just try this out, you know, almost like a video game, but a little bit deeper. And it's like, okay, once you get to the end or you get your feel, you move on. But it didn't have the education. It didn't have the type of exposure that it had today. It wasn't necessarily trying to, like, the articles were like super dense. You know, it was like reading like
Bitcoin talk papers, and all that.
Yeah, it was like reading technical papers, right, from like a science journal. So it wasn't really built to be for the mainstream. So, you know, I do have expertise in certain things, but I'm still just kind of a mainstream guy. And so it was kind of like I didn't understand the extent or the impact of it. So that didn't come into later, you know. And so now I've met a bunch of people who are really, really not necessarily into cryptocurrency, but are like heavy into blockchain and stuff like that. So I've had many conversations and sit downs with people who are like at the cutting edge of the field, and been able to kind of get really, you know, deep into the different capacities and stuff like that. If I knew all that back then, you know, I would have probably retired from rapping that day. Just went and bought a bunch of GPUs and and set up in my garage or something. But yeah, man, it's an interesting space even till today, and to kind of see it developing into, you know, what these NFTs and all of this stuff is, and how people are hacking that and taking it to different spaces. It's super interesting. But yeah, I've been there not from the ground floor, because I know it's been around since the 80s and 90s, but you know, I definitely was there early.
Well, I mean, to say you were mining, no matter what nefarious purpose it was for, to say that you were mining is some OG street cred. So you definitely are more credentialed than a lot of people. A lot of people just got involved in like 2017, 2018 when it had that run up in price, and that's what drove them to it. You actually were looking at it for the utility, so you can officially say you were in it for the tech, which is, you know, a badge of honor in crypto. So you get that honorary status there.
Hold on, I'm gonna go get, pardon me as I wander through my cavernous estate, I'm gonna go and get the actual laptop that I think I still have it.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not the same website still on the browser on there, Gordon.
Oh, nah, man, ain't no porn on here. Oh yeah, still got it. A little show and tell.
Nice.
Maybe I'll give this away to while it's still on here, and it'll be like, yo, Lupe's worth like $80 billion. But yeah, man, here's the laptop that I was doing it on. So this is how far it goes back. We still have like, look at those ports. It's still like an Ethernet port on here.
You need a jumper cable to get that going.
Yeah, man. But anyway, so yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Dope. Well, I mean, the cool thing is you were almost prophetic in like two regards. because when I looked up some old articles that people had talked to you about crypto specifically, you said you first saw two things. And number one is like, you were still feeling out crypto and what it means, whether, from a social experiment or utility standpoint, like whatever. But you said you can foresee it always being a speculative asset that will appreciate almost. And you even made the analogy to baseball cards, right? Yeah. And so here we are with NFTs, which is, that's the money analogy really. And then you also talked about the blockchain itself, maybe not so much the cryptocurrency, but blockchain providing different methods for musicians to really disrupt kind of the music ecosystem. So like that was years ago, before this boom, before, there's a lot of artists looking to get involved just right now because they're seeing the hype and they're seeing what's going on. But you actually had this thought process and, kind of foresaw some of this coming back then.
Yeah, man. I made my first, this is going to be a shocker. You ready for this?
I'm ready. Nytmare? I'm ready.
You sure?
I don't know. Now you get me kind of psyched out. You're going to turn around the laptop and open it up.
Oh, no, I'm not gonna. This laptop is cooked, right?
All right.
What's the disk drive on here? It's so funny that I used to mine Bitcoin on this shit. I made my first what can be considered like an NFT, like for real, in like 2012. And it was about, to your point about how blockchain can kind of be used as to disrupt music, not as a currency, right? Because again, I never cared about money, I still don't. But like, what other aspects of it can be used? And that idea of having something that is, singular, and unchangeable, kind of like the digital fingerprint in a real way. I've always talked about how can I access that, and it was one of the keys that was kind of missing from what I wanted to do. It was that idea of, especially me, like my first album was pirated, So I have this love-hate relationship with hackers and cryptologists, and there's like some days where it's like it's really, really cool, and then there's other days when you get doxxed and you like, this shit sucks. But my first album getting like leaked and it got downloaded. This was the days of like Mega Upload and Z-Share and all that. My first album got leaked like 3 months in advance. Actually, Food and Liquor. Album right here that we're actually going to talk about a little later, I guess, in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
It got leaked 3 months in advance on the internet, and it got downloaded. I think we were able to kind of track downloads from different places. It got downloaded like 900,000 times, so like 1 million times in the streets, right? And it was kind of like, that's cool if it was like for mixtapes. Like that's cool if it was something that we're just kind of putting out there, which we were. So we were putting out mixtapes for free and dropping digital albums and stuff like that, using things like Mega Upload and Z-Share and promoting and all these blogs. But when it comes to like, okay, this is the thing that I need to like send my little sisters to college with, this is like my first record, this is what I need to kind of buy myself a house with type situation. And then it gets leaked like that. You get this weird relationship with like the digital space and the internet space, right? Because that could have never happened in the streets, right? Like physical stuff. Again, like I said, I was always on the precipice between analog and digital. So I knew both spaces, like literally having to pass out physical CDs and do physical promo and stuff like that. There was no blogs, right? And it kind of put me on guard, and I developed this relationship where I got really, really tight with my security, really, really tight with who was allowed to come into the studio, who was allowed to have access to this, access to that. And it was like, at that point in time, I wish I had a blockchain. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish there was a way to keep things kind of one-on-one,
right?
Be able to recognize when somebody attempted to change something and stuff like that. And I actually started to make or think about making music. Like, what does it mean to make one of something? What does it mean to isolate things and what does it look like? And I tried many ways, like mechanically to do it, right? Versus digitally, like, okay, I'll do this one of these, erase the session, keep this thumb drive, move this over here, and it was really like walking around with the nuclear football, so to speak. suitcase with the handcuff type shit. And so it's always been in my mind, right? But it was never crystallized into like, oh, that's what the blockchain can do, you know? And so
Right.
now that it's more understood, it's more widespread. And I'm still this 10, 15 years ago, but thinking like, you know, I've always wanted to do that. You know, I've always wanted to be in a space where, yeah, make music publicly for everybody for mass production, but then also want to make things that's just one, you know. And one of the spin-offs from that was I got into painting. You know, I got into like making art, physical art and stuff like that, strictly out of knowing that when I did music, because I'm in the industry, because I got, you know, management and other stuff that's about pushing shit out to the masses. But me personally, artistically, I was like, I just want to make one of these. I just want to make this song one time, you know, and have one fan enjoy it in one particular experience, but not having the technology to do that, you know. And people actually laughed at me when I wanted to do that. You know, it was like, why would you want to do that shit? You know, famously, I got into a fight with fucking Kid Cudi because of that shit, right? It's like, I want to make a song. I want to make one song for one fan about their experience, just one copy for them. Now you'll do an ill piece of packaging. And I remember fucking Kid Cudi was like, Lupe's trying to steal from his fans, you know? And it was like, and I was charging like, yo, it's gonna be $500. You know, it's not gonna be, and the only reason I'm charging that amount is because I want you to appreciate the shit. You know,
Right.
I want you to have some type of investment into the shit as opposed to just giving it to you for free. And the song is about you. You know, it's like whatever you want the song to be about, you know, send me your parents' names, send me the beat you want it rapped over and the whole shit. And I remember the people were like, he's trying to steal, you know, like he's trying to steal money from his fans. He's trying to get over on people. And it was really fucked up. So it was like, I've had those experiences of trying to create what NFTs are now. Now everybody can do it. You know, you can NFT somebody's shit that's not even yours, right? And it was like, wow, always on that 10-year delay. You know, like you mentioned it, like being somewhat progressive or ahead of the time. I always say that I'm on like a 10-year delay. You know, so what I'm doing right now, 10 years from now is gonna be the shit. But today I'm gonna get fucking laughed at for it, you know?
Yeah.
So the pain of progress, right?
Man, that's pretty crazy. That you were thinking about it so early, but you know, like you said, the vehicle really wasn't there, and that was a time when it really saw, like, I feel like the commoditization of music just kind of started, when it was like, you know, people were like, hey, things are gonna leak, there's nothing you can do about it, just accept it, you know. And that led us to where we're at today, right, with streams. And you know, some people get a lot of streams, I guess, but for a lot of artists, you know, when you get that fractional cent per stream divided by the collaborators and the producers, I always tell people this story. I dabbled in music. I had put out some stuff, and someone jacked the song and put on a compilation and ended up on Spotify. I'm like, let me just check this out. Like, is it worthwhile for me to set up on there? And it was like, for the thousands of listens, it would have been like 3 cents or something stupid. It was just amazing, the quantity that you needed. But that's where we've gotten to after years and years of just people leaking. I mean, I remember people thinking it was a strategy to rename a song of an independent artist to a popular song, like name your song Kick Push and throw it on LimeWire or Napster because other people will download it. They were trying to, because everybody was just getting their stuff for free. So it's interesting that we've come to a point where, and this is part of what I think is good about this narrative about the technology and where we're at. We're talking about people being able to support and appreciate the intrinsic value of art. You know, they can make a statement and say it's valuable to me. You know, like I got a barber, she does an awesome job, sick face, she takes care of my beard, and I pay her well because I value the craft of what she does, right? And I want her to continue doing it. Sometimes she's like, no, you always take care of me, I got you. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, I want to make sure you're here next week. I want you to know if I call, you're gonna come let me in because I appreciate the art. And she says, there's so many people that are like, hey, a haircut should be $10. Like, why is it $30 or whatever? So I think people get in that mindset, and what's good is now this is given an opportunity to kind of flip that on its head a little bit.
There's always that battle between self-interest and value, right?
Yeah.
And how are you valuing things based on your own self-interest and your own set of kind of personal incentives, or is it just for the generation, for the craft in general, and making sure people stay having a job? You know what I'm saying? Understanding that everybody's not going to have the same amount of appreciation that you have for something. That's why you see things like Patreon and stuff like that, right? Where you can have like just 40 people maintaining an entire YouTube channel or something like that, right? You know, it's super interesting, and I think that's part of, like, you know, there's a downside to everything, you know, and I've been a progressive, but I'm not necessarily an optimist like that. I'm somewhat pessimistic. And when all this shit started to come, I had to remember those lessons of, like, you know, having interactions with people telling me that I'm like robbing people or stiffing folks or taking advantage or whatever, right? It wasn't true, but it still was like, okay, that's in the back of people's minds, right? So you want to be sensitive to that. And so that's how I kind of look at the NFT space today. You know, it's that same measure of like appreciation for the technical drive of it, for what it means and the way people are going to use it. But then at the same time too, making sure that, you know, creating things that have intrinsic value in and of themselves, above and beyond just my own self-interest, right? And trying to capitalize on a moment in time. So when you think of something like Spotify, I remember having Spotify, probably on this computer too, one of the first, probably Spotify 1.0. The same machine right here, and I got it from like a friend who was working at Spotify right before it was, and I think it was similar to kind of LimeWire when you look at it, where it was just like all these songs kind of, you know, quote unquote streamed at the time, that I don't know if you had the option to download, and that was kind of weird, because that download button wasn't there. And it was kind of like, this is weird. And I was like, interesting, and never used it. Right. And I had it on my laptop with a bunch of other kind of nascent, you know, probably primal technologies that are now worth billions of dollars. Right. And the thing with Spotify, which is interesting, is Spotify found a way to charge per listen. Right. And that was kind of like the fundamental thing, which was groundbreaking, and but at the same time too, you know, has this dark side to it as well, right? Creates other kind of intangibles of like, oh, music is fleeting. You know, music doesn't retain that same value that it had before, because you don't have to put in the effort or the work to go get it, right? It's one thing to say, even if was trash, right? But because you had got on the bus and had to go to Sam Goody, you know, and buy it, and couldn't listen to it until you got back home, and it took you 3 hours to, you know, get the CD or whatever part of your day, you gave a different level of appreciation. You know, you gave it a different level of you had a different relationship to it, even if it was whack, you know, and that was kind of part of the fun, where you rolled the dice, right? Kind of gambling, is this new such and such album gonna be that good? You get out there and you spend that time at the mall, you're like, yo, this shit's whack. And then you figure out, how can I get it off?
Unless it's in that batch that we all got for free from BMG or whatever, then, you know, then that, you know, it wasn't really a roll of the dice, except on my credit score. But
yes, except for the credit score, and wasn't like a criminal enterprise. But anyway, we're not gonna get into that. The other side of it, you think of Spotify now, right? That they, you know, there's millions of songs on Spotify that have never been played, you know, that have never been streamed. So you mentioned like there's a few people getting streamed, whales, no pun intended, right? There's a few whales, but then there's like, I think the last kind of piece that I've seen about Spotify, it's a little dated, but it's still relevant, right? And this kind of speaks to Apple, speaks to streaming services, speaks to a lot of the digital stuff that we think about, Netflix or what have you. There's shit that's just sitting there that's never been played. You know, the last thing I seen about Spotify, I think it was 20 million songs, 4 million had never been streamed. Right?
Wow.
So just kind of like think about that, like, and then out of there's another kind of, I guess, tier, I'm gonna call it, from the no plays to you might get a few streams. You know, what's 3 or 4 streams? And like you mentioned, 1,000 streams, you get like 3 cents. And I know we're not being exact, but that's kind of the idea, right?
Right.
You think about like, okay, well, what's the next tier up? How many streams are they getting? And when you look at it as a whole, it's like, how much is really being utilized? You know, how and who has the whaleness, the whalesmanship to be able to utilize it and actually get profit out of it. You know, really use it at a way where it makes financial sense. You know, or even use it in a way where it makes just promotional sense. You know, like this is my music is now in front of an audience of 80 million people, right? How much is that true for a majority of the people that are on these platforms? You know, so there's that side of it as well, where like just because it's there, just because it exists, that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to have any value to certain folks and certain groups of people. And then you have to find ways to kind of hack it. You know, you got to find ways to kind of you know, tweak the algorithm or break the such and such, or you know, you find yourself doing all these kind of really technical steps, really to get into the minutia, just above, you know, actually getting into the code, right? But things like SEO and all this other extra shit, and you're doing all of this shit, and you haven't wrote a rap. You know, you haven't figured out a new dance move. You know, you haven't made a new painting, right? Because you spend a lot of your time trying to just promote the shit that you made. And so for me, that's kind of one of the, I mentioned earlier where I was like, I'm just a rapper, you know, and you gave me a little shit for it, but it's cool. Just joking. But there's something about going back to that purity. So through this whole cycle of all of the technology, all of the new bells and whistles, all of the new shiny new things, you know, I tried to remain consistent in just being a rapper. You know, and I know that's the same for people who code in a real serious way, where it's like I'm just coding, you know, like this is what I do, you know. And it's rare to find those people who just want to stick to their fundamental, no matter what other fireworks and circusry and festival shit is jumping off around them, because they know that that's fleeting, you know. And it's something about sticking to the core of things and maintaining that. When I look at crypto, you know, I'm more interested in that core group, you know, where it's not about just making a bunch of fucking money. You know, I'm interested in that core group of folks where I think like, how do we solve the environmental side? You know, how do we get from, you know, a shareholder to a stakeholder type way of thinking about this? You know, how are we going to use this to make the world a better place? You know, not to just kind of centralize a bunch of wealth to a few folks. And how are we using this to really make and craft things that actually have value, you know, that actually add something into the social conversation above and beyond just how much fucking money I made yesterday, you know?
Right.
And I've been around that forever. And it may be new to some folks because they've never been around money. I've been around all kinds of money, you know, and at a certain point, that shit don't mean anything. It becomes like the value of you as a person and the value of your conversation, not the value of your bank account. And I feel like that's one of the dark sides of it, you know, that I've seen recently just with NFTs over the past couple of months. Is that it's that same conversation, like what crypto was meant to do, what blockchain was meant to provide, and what it was meant to serve. Hitting a moment of flash in the pan where you have all these folks who are just about the money. You know, and you get just this rush in conversation about money and everything has a dollar sign attached to this shit. And I mean, that's cool. We can get into that space and just make a bunch of money and fuck it. But there's also something about, you know, where are the folks that are keeping the shit pure, that really, and folks who really understand what the initial conditions of purity were meant to be, you know, and what was the goal of it, and really kind of resetting and getting back to what, you know, crypto was supposed to be doing, as opposed to just trying to make shit to make money for somebody. So it's a critique, but I mean, it's the same critique that I got as a rapper. You know, it's the same critique people give to, you know, folks across all business, to bankers and fucking people who make cars and all kinds of shit. It's like, what is the real fundamental goal? And so when I go back to something like Spotify, it is that, you know, we started as a way to fight off the pirates, you know, and in the process of doing that, you know, and how do we do that? It becomes, okay, music is water, is the metaphor. We're going to charge per stream, right? But in that process, they had a choice to make. It was like, do we deal with the traditional system? I mean, the labels and the publishing companies and all of the pieces and parts that go with that, which has a bunch of fucked up individuals in it, right? Or do we go straight to the artist, you know, and make deals with the artist? You know, treat this as a new way of doing music, a new way of doing business, and really pushing the security side of it. You know, this is securing and maintaining, you know, your work, as opposed to running it through the traditional model. And they chose to run it through the traditional model, and they fucked a lot of people. You know, they didn't fuck a lot of people themselves, but because they chose to plug into the system that was notorious for fucking over people, they come out looking like a bad guy, right? So when I look at the NFT space, it's like, which path are we going? You know, are we plugging into the dark side of shit and the traditional gallery, whatever shit? Or is it really about plugging in with the artist, you know, making a direct connection between the people that are really about this shit? Or is it just a bunch of motherfuckers who want to make some money, you know? So that's where I sit on it. You know, I'm in that kind of like observing space, even as I'm in the midst of creating the shit, you know?
That's deep. And I knew you would have a perspective that, you know, like you often do, that would try to look at both sides of the coin and objectively make a call on it. I heard your podcast on the Lupe and Roy show with JTJ. I forgot how she liked it. JJ, one of the others. You were talking about NFTs, and you know, you had some great questions about, you know, the eco effect of them, the impact on the environment, whether it was just monetary gains that are driving the initiative, or if it was even a ploy by the cryptocurrency community. And a couple of things I just wanted to reference with regards to stuff you said, because they were great points. But you know, the ethos of cryptocurrency really as a culture was to be counterculture. It's more aligned with hip hop than people realize, you know. And when I talk to people about this, you know, they see modern day hip hop and think that it's just, you know, kind of fad like, where people want to follow along. And I talk to them, say, no, everything that was there at the onset was because you wanted to be counterculture, right? People turn their hat to the side to be different. And then once everyone else did, they put it back with tags on it and stickers. So there's always this duality of you're trying to stay ahead of things and be counterculture and build and develop this, you know, this thing that's a benefit for the people that are really driven and involved for the purpose that's not just monetary gain. But the monetary gain always comes in. The thing is, that helps in unison to drive those messages. And we just have to stay on top of it, evolving and riding that wave and not falling down in the surf, so to speak. If it wasn't for the money that came into hip hop, the message wouldn't have reached as many people as it did, right? It's got its good and its bad. And the same thing with NFTs, really. You know, there were people that were experimenting with music and NFTs and things for years now, before some of these musicians that have come in and said that, you know, they dropped their first album or whatever, and they really were doing it to try to see, hey, how can we put something on the blockchain and have it live forever? What does this mean to fan interaction? What does this mean for rights of the artists, you know, from copyright standpoint, or taking out the middlemen? They were really working on it for that purpose. And so with the investment that comes in, with that money, with that gold rush, also comes more availability for people to push the envelope, to build out platforms that'll help make the efficacy of it, like make it easy for a person to just take out their credit card and participate, and not gotta like download a wallet on an old laptop because they're trying to like speed up their porn. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hey man, wait, hold up, Nytmare. I can throw shots at myself. You can't throw shots at me. I just want to let you know.
Okay.
I sensed
that was not a shot. Because
I can reference my porn speed. You can't, and I reserve the right.
All right. Now, I lived in the buffering world, so you know, I wasn't mining Bitcoin. I'm kind of jealous. I think I'm jealous, but you know, that duality exists, where you know, the investment and the people that are coming in speculatively help raise awareness, and in turn could help the artist. So I think that always exists at the same time, and I love the point about when we used to go to the stores and cop a CD, and every Tuesday I was hyped to see what I could get, like even video games or whatever, browsing the boxes or looking at the packaging and looking, I was excited to get it home, check the liner notes for secret messages and will it have lyrics or not, like all that stuff. And that got taken away. But having these more interactive elements, having NFTs, having something you can get excited about, having more intrinsic value than just the music alone, it's kind of bridging us back to that experience a little bit. So, like you said, there's a lot of sides to the coin that we need to, be mindful of. But I think opportunistically, there's a lot of good here as well happening. And, I'm glad to hear that you're exploring that and on that path.
Yeah, man. I mean, anytime, I always say this to folks, regardless of what you're doing, and I work in various activist spaces, and, Occupy Wall Street. I was helping finance Occupy Wall Street in different places. So I've been around every aspect of kind of like the human condition, right? And whenever money gets involved, it fucks it up. No matter what and if it creates spaces for corruption, and opportunity turns into oppression very quickly. So it just has to be managed. The more that, money of any color, kind that you want to call it, once it starts to get into the equation, you have to start being very vigilant about how you manage those relationships, because that money changes things. I've seen it happen every single fucking time, right? And you got to be careful with that, and as much as money provides a platform and exposure, it also comes with all the baggage that is money, and all of those incitements and all of those kind of incentives to step outside of yourself, to step outside of your character, to do things that you normally wouldn't do. And, it isn't coming out of nowhere. Money always comes from somewhere. And I think we think, even if we think of something like a fiat currency, it comes from somewhere. There is an aspect to it that it is being generated from something hard somewhere, right? It isn't just an idea. And it's like, hey, I trust you to trust me. And it's like, nah, fuck that. I think even one of the early tenets of blockchain and crypto was fuck trust. Trust in and of itself needs to kind of be removed from the equation, to focus on something that's a little bit fundamental. Because trust has all these different subjective angles and facets, right? But it's just to be careful, man. Like think about these anytime that money comes in, for whatever my opinion is worth. You gotta be 2 or 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of what that's going to do to people and what that's going to mean, and be aware of the impact of where it's coming from. So that environmental piece is real to me. Because I've been in places where the world is fucked up. And the water is fucked up. And the attention is more so paid. The downside of that. I've been in places where, it's like, is there a fire? Like, is the city on fire? They're like, no, that's just what this is. Because there's, the city is so contaminated or so polluted that there's just a constant haze in there, and that's what people are breathing in, and it smells like you're at barbecue everywhere you go, from your hotel room to the tourist attraction to this to that. Just this constant haze. I've seen super malls next to slums, where people are shit in the river. So there is aspects of, where's the attention being paid? Who's really benefiting from these kind of advancements? And what is the stakeholders' position in a lot of these kind of things and aspects? And that runs from fucking Elon Musk all the way down to Lupe Fiasco, to constantly be managing the moves that we make, whether analog, digital, metaphysical, whatever the fuck, that it has a human cost at the end of the day. That cost is going to come to bear. And it doesn't matter how much fucking money you got in your account. It doesn't matter when you can't fucking breathe.
Right.
So I want to be heavy on that, just so people know, like, understand that, be a little bit more vigilant, be a little bit more sympathetic and empathetic to where this shit is, and be aware of where the shit is coming from.
Right.
I don't know if the artists and the folks that are just jumping on the wave are aware of that. So there needs to be that education on the side as well.
Well, here's the thing. We talk a lot about, we talk to independent artists trying to get involved in the NFT space all the way up to, Grammy winning musicians like yourself. And part of the narrative is, people buy the artist as much as they do the NFT and
Hmm.
the narrative of that artist. And so you being so authentic about how you feel about it and, and what gives you pause and some of the things that you've, you know, given deep thought about really lends itself to the authenticity, and people that I'm sure will want to participate with you because they know it's genuine. It's not, and I'm not going to name names, but there are musicians that are saying, hey, let me jump into the space, regardless of let me just slap something together and call it an NFT. And that's not what's going on here. This is someone that's given thought to it and really is trying to bring something to the table as well as contribute to the conversation. So major props to you for that. And so with that, you ultimately decided you were going to go forward with an NFT launch, and that's exciting to hear. When you did that, you put together some unique things. Do you want to talk about your thought process on how you wanted to put it together and how you wanted people to be able to participate in this with you?
I mean, it's interesting. Like I wish shout out to Real Lee, who kind of drove this. I was still sitting kind of in the back seat, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I just woke up. But being aware of the space and was trying to figure out, like, what works, how much time do we have, to actually build something out that makes sense. But at the same time too, my experience from the music business is like, if it was up to me, I'd have never did touch the sky. You know what I'm saying? It'd have been like, and
Right.
I would have missed out on all of, but I would have did kick push, but I would have never
Right.
did touch the sky, right? And it was kind of like, you have to kind of, at a certain point, look at what the industry demands. Look at what the folks like Origin Protocol, who's powering this NFT drop, and then the folks who are actively in the space day to day. Like, what are people going to respond to? What are people responding to? And with NFTs, I didn't know. It was still just kind of like, as an artist, it's like, I don't know what the fuck to make. I don't know what people will respond to. I don't know what the demands of the space are. So at a certain point, it was kind of like, guide me through, hold my hand and show me what people are responding to. And what are the basic things that make up an NFT and stuff like that. So in this first drop, it was more so just, let's take the things that we are aware of that have a value that people will be interested in, and to tie it all together, it came with the Food and Liquor Show first. So April 15th, we're doing we're at around the 15th anniversary of my first album, Food and Liquor. So we were planning to do a tour post, kind of before COVID and everything happened, where we had dates all around the world where we were just going to go tour and perform that album from front to back. We actually did a really dope show in Chicago where we kind of kicking it off, and or one of the kickoffs, and COVID hits, and then we're kind of stuck, literally stuck in the house. And it was always this drive of like, we got Food and Liquor, the anniversary's coming, let's do something. And so the idea was to do a virtual concert. I did a few during the pandemic, a little virtual concert of just food and liquor. Let's just put that out there for the fans, for the people to kind of enjoy and experience. And the NFT kind of spun off of that, where it was like, okay, we're doing this food and liquor tour, or this food and liquor virtual show. Maybe it's the time to do an NFT drop in the midst of it. So like, okay, cool. So the NFT actually drops April 12th. The concert is April 15th. And so a lot of the NFT pieces are just built off of aspects of the show, aspects of the album Food and Liquor, specific songs from Food and Liquor, like Kick Push and Daydream and stuff like that. And just really kind of building things that are relevant to that. So the album cover and again, some of the aesthetic themes of the album, and building kind of 3D models and NFTs and stuff based off that. But again, it's for the fans, so it is that kind of like fan service to, like you said, not just trying to take advantage or put out some bullshit for some whales. I keep going at you, Nytmare, but but for the fans, like if you're a Lupe fan, it's Lupe fan first. It's not whales first. It's like if you're a
Right.
Lupe fan who just so happens to be a whale, then you're gonna fucking love this, right? Because it's more so put on the aesthetics and pulling things that the people who grew up listening to Food and Liquor, who understand what the album meant for them, what the album means to me, what it means for the hip hop culture and stuff like that. And so people can get pieces and artifacts from that process. So it's continuous. So it's not just here's something for the NFTs. Like, no, here's something for that is directly connected to the life of what this album is going to be now and in the future. So it's a little bit more focusing on the fans, doing that fan service, but in a real meaningful way, versus trying to like, let me and out some NFTs, you know what I'm saying? Just slap some shit together. So, like you said, there's an authenticity to it.
There's a criticism of some people get in this space. I mean, you see, Beeple went for almost $70 million. There's other artists that just blow up and they'll have to do a drop that's relative to their value and scarcity, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, say I love Lupe Fiasco. I can't bid with these whales. I can't pay 50 grand, 100 millions of dollars for this NFT, but I want to participate because that makes me feel good that I'm part of that movement. So by having an open edition, that means anyone that wants to get involved can at any level. You're not economically gating people like these people that say, hey, only if you got hundreds of thousands or millions can you participate. You're saying, hey, there is value to this and here's that portion, but also I want everybody to be involved. I believe in the democratization of this process with the fans.
Look, I love it, man. We do cheap seats at the shows. There's folks. So for me, again, it's like the coming from the analog space through the digital space. A lot of this shit is the same. It just has a new title. You know what I'm saying? Like we've always done discount tickets for folks who couldn't, if you couldn't afford to come into a Lupe show or something like that. It's like, come on in this motherfucker. And even folks who like you might come to a Lupe concert and you pay $25 or $30 for this ticket, and you're gonna get like a 3-hour show. We were coming in venues starting at 9, leaving at 1 in the morning type shit. Just because we wanted to make sure people got above and beyond the value of that ticket, and so they had a really great experience. So for me, that's always been part of my MO, is make sure you get overvalue. I always tell my fans to come up and like talk heavy shit to me, like, Lupe, I hated this album, right? I'm like, look, man, you have more free music in your iTunes or in your account of Lupe Fiasco than you have paid music. I know that for a fact because I've released way more free mixtape music than I have album music. So whenever you deal with Lupe Fiasco, you're always going to get more than what you paid for.
Well,
and everybody's invited.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. So the cheap seat analogy is great, but it's a little bit different in that these people can hold that ticket stub, and over time, as Lupe becomes more revered as an artist and a big part of hip hop history, that retains some value, and they can pass it on to their kids if they're proud of it. It lives forever in the blockchain, right? It's not going to get tattered and lost like some of my concert stubs do around here. But also, if they really wanted to, they could sell it. They could see where it values and just be proud of it and things like that. So that's kind of a different paradigm. One of the beauties of NFTs, and I don't know if I assume it is, but maybe it's not or whatever, is that it allows, there's a smart contract in the background. This blah, blah, blah. It's technical, but artists can literally build in residuals into it. So they can build in royalties. So like, someone went to that concert, they paid $100 or whatever. They saved the stub because it was cool. That stub goes up in value for whatever reason to, $1,000. And then that gets sold down the line. The artist that the NFT originally was minted to would get royalties from that in perpetuity, like forever. Right. Like it would go to their estate. So, we're talking about this specific drop, but the NFT movement in general, that's a big shift for a lot of art forms and how it would work. So, there's go ahead.
To take it back a little bit to the analog, and I guess it'll be a little bit of an education going both ways, right? One of the things that a lot of artists didn't really know or didn't really capitalize on, or they didn't have the capacity to capitalize on, right? So it's one thing to have rights, it's one thing to have your masters, but it's a whole other thing to be able to capitalize on your masters, right? Be able to use your masters in a way to generate wealth and profit for yourself. So in the analog space, what some people didn't maybe again capitalize on, didn't know how, wasn't worry about it because they were just the artists and they didn't really give a fuck about money, is that there's, you know, what do you do with the rights to your work, you know, to your physical work, to your painting, you know, like what do you do with it? Like are you making prints, you know, are you doing something else outside of just selling that one painting that one time, you know, or selling that one statue at one time, or selling that one song at one time? Even one of the makeups for when you think of producers, right, for making songs, and you know, you've done music, so you know about this. When you think about splits and producer royalties and stuff like that, the live performance is kind of considered a royalty. You know, when you think about it, the live performance is the opportunity. And if you look at the Grammys, right, there's different categories for different things. But if you look at those categories, they mean something like best solo performance. Like, but isn't that a rap song? But why is it best solo performance? So there's these different kind of categories in the analog space where, you know, the live performance is looked at as a royalty or a license of the master copy, right? So you can own all your masters, but if you don't know how to book shows, you're fucked. You know, there's something about understanding the entire scope of your space, and realizing what in your space is actually a royalty, and then what is the work that needs to be done for you to be able to execute and actually capitalize on having that royalty. And it may not necessarily be getting caught up in the rights of this or the rights of that. There's certain rights that are just universal that come with the package, but you know, artists don't exercise it, you know, or they can't exercise it, or again, they're not in the space to even think about exercising. We're just kind of sitting there. And the reason of one of the products of that is just stuff like 360 deals, right? Which were kind of the first the analog smart contract, right? To fuck you over kind of a thing, where it was like, you know, as opposed to signing you to just a traditional record deal and letting you have the royalty of performance where you own that 100%, or the royalty of your merch where you own that for 100%, or XYZ, all these different revenue streams. The label comes in and just takes, you know, 35% of everything, gives you $1 million loan, and then, you know, sets you off into the wild, you know, and they recoup for their lifetime, right? Or the lifetime of that agreement, you know, 35% of everything you do. You know, you write a letter home to your mom and they're getting 35% of the publishing, right? That's an extreme example. But is that kind of understanding and misunderstanding of the artistic space where there's folks who kind of get caught into the trap thinking that, oh, just so I'm going to get paid forever off of this NFT, and that's different from the music business, or that's different from the theater business, or that's different from the physical art space. And it's really not, you know, it's really just a digital space for this. But those kind of aspects of the business have always been there, whether you were aware of them as an artist or was actively kept hidden from you as an artist by whomever was ever going to participate with you in that process. You know, it's a different thing. So I think even as we go through, you know, this new wave of things, hopefully it opens up doors on the other way, right? For the folks who aren't digital artists, who look at something like this and say, man, I want to get paid off something every time it gets sold. Realizing like, hey man, are you making prints of your physical work? You know, are you making reproductions? Are you making merch on top of your physical work? Like, are you really executing across all the platforms and opportunities are available for you as an artist? If you're not being able to make NFTs, you know, if there's something that you're not even interested in, you don't have the technical feasibility, there is still value in things that are sitting unexplored, even in the physical space. So I don't want folks to just think, oh man, I can't do NFTs, then I'm fucked. It's like, no, there's still value to be had and produced in your space. It's a much harder work and a much harder job, but it's still there to be had.
Yeah. Well, two things. Number one, it's forcing this conversation to happen more. So that's definitely good, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said, if it's making people say, well, how can we, you know, equivalize this or have the equivalent happen without the NFTs? But number two, you know, the smart contract isn't some person's opinion on whether something would be applied. It isn't, enforceable only when it's caught. It's going to happen no matter what when it's executed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we could talk about a lot of different facets of where there's possibly, something that could opportunistically and be enhanced or be an opportunity for some foul play, but it moves us closer to the space where you're guaranteed, something for your work if it moves forward. So if anything, having the conversation and having it is good.
Right.
I did want to talk to you about, the emphasis of the drop and the concert being Food and Liquor, because it's such an iconic album, and it's, obviously so many people were exposed to you because of Kick Push. Can you tell us like what that album means to you now holistically, this many years later?
Man, it's my baby, it is like, it's my first album, like it's my, like there's something to that, like that just means more than it's your second album, or it's your fifth album, or, it's my fifth car that I've owned, or my second house that I bought, or my third marriage, or something like that. There's always something about that primal move, which sets the conditions for, the rest of your life. And for me, Food and Liquor being as successful as it was, in the piracy space, it was one thing, because it was like, we got downloaded a million times, it was like, oh shit. And then we turned around and we, sold, I think 400,000 records. Like it's weird because Food and Liquor is one of my least selling albums, and I blame that on the pirates, you motherfuckers. But there is something to it being nominated for like 3 Grammys, and Daydreaming winning Grammy, I can 15 years later, I can go on a tour just doing this album, right? I don't have to do it doesn't have the mega hits, like some of the other records, or Show Goes On, or Battle Scars, stuff like that. But it has managed to kind of carve out its own space as like a hip hop classic, and if I didn't have anything else, I can always go back and live off this record, perform it, still add value to the social conversation, still add value to people's lives, so it means something on so many different levels to so many different people. It still has like a commercial appeal and aspect to it. So it was kind of like I don't want to call it the perfect storm, but kind of like the imperfect storm that a lot of artists never get. They never, all those layers never meet up at the same time for them. And for me, it wasn't great. It was like, I also look at it and I cringe a little bit because I know like it leaked and all this other extra shit that happened with it. But 15 years later, it still has a value and a presentation and in this world. And I meet people at concerts where Food and Liquor is older than them, right? And they're singing songs.
Right.
So they're 11 years old, they're 10 years old, singing songs from Food and Liquor, is crazy. So I'm just blessed to have been a part of it. I'm blessed
just a part,
be, making that right decision of like, are we gonna make a bunch of street shit, or are we gonna make something that just is you? You're a nerdy dude who talks about nerdy shit, who has this varying array of experiences. So just do that. Be real to you, and it'll pay off later. So when we talk about things paying off over time, every time this album moves, whether I'm getting some monetary value or not, it's carving a path in the world, which I'm proud of, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a wonderful contribution to hip hop culture. And you'll hear people all the time talk about, that this album made them feel like accepted, like it was cool to exist with that duality of like being urban or being into hip hop and liking, nerdy shit like you alluded to, right? Like they felt like now I could be more comfortable in my skin because of that. And that's powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know how to skate. Just so folks, the other side of this, like, Lupe, don't even know how to skate. Like, I know how to fucking skate. You motherfucker, I do. But yeah, man, for sure.
As an aside, lasers was in heavy rotation for me. Words I never said would just always really resonated with me. So that was always on my iPod, when I was working out or whatever. That was one of my personal favorites. I think I really also like Break the Chain on that album, but just as an aside.
Oh no, that's all good. I'll listen. I'll take these flowers. Don't worry.
Hey. So super dope NFT drop coming up. Like you said, this is just the beginning. You wanted to really tie into this awesome concert coming to celebrate food and liquor on April 15th. It's going to be a big event, and you've been generous enough to give 10 tickets for us to share with the whale community to come in and appreciate and experience all of that with you. So thank you so much for that. We'll talk more to the community about that in a little bit. But yeah, like you said, this is your first, dipping your toe in the water. Any ideas already going through your head on the next one? Or are you still just kind of feeling things out and seeing how this goes?
I said something, you mentioned the Lupe and Roy show, and we actually had a guest by the name of JTJ, who was just kind of being a journalist around the crypto and the NFT space and stuff like that. And I think I mentioned something about, what does it mean to kind of like step out of the way? You know what I'm saying? Like, let the folks who this is for, like, capitalize on this. Like, this is for those digital artists who actually do digital art. You know what I'm saying? Like, those animators and those people who create GIFs and are able to create those interesting little 10, 15 second things that go viral. Like, this is their time to shine. You know what I'm saying? This isn't Lupe Fiasco's fucking time to shine. Like, this is yours. Like, I rap, this is what I do. This is where I seek validation. This is where I seek financial compensation from time to time. But this is my pun intended. For those folks, I would love to see them kind of lead this charge. I would love to see, those individuals take full advantage of what this means for them, while it's here, So I don't know how quick I'm going to be with the second drop with that in mind, that kind of activism in mind. But at the same time, too, I do got a bunch of dope ass ideas. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, but I do got this dope ass idea. So, I might go and learn how to build these shits and do the software and all of that good stuff to really make it authentic and really make it official, as opposed to just hiring labor and shit like that. Because I think that person who's doing the labor should be the one who should be dropping the fucking NFT. Like, fuck us celebrities, like, fuck us, people that are kind of on the fringes. I do have a certain level of authenticity in the space for real. I can prove it. But, this particularly is like, man, let the digital artist shine. Like, listen, play my music at the event, or have my music playing in the background. But it's your time. So we'll see. We'll see when the next one's gonna be. But I do got some dope ass ideas. See where it goes. But now I'm just kind of waiting.
Yeah, they're always coming out with stuff that, like, now that they're learning how to incorporate different elements, like video with music, with the digital art, like VR. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on that just, like, the smoke starts coming out of my ears when I think about it. But, one thing that we see a lot of is, like you said, celebrities coming into the space, and the conversation is around, hey, it'd be great if, like you said, these celebrities would be willing to say, hey, let me work with someone within that community and really marry it up and help catapult them forward as they help us move forward in the space too. But one incredible thing I just got to share with you because I thought it was dope. There's a thing called Async. It's a company that kind of works with NFTs and kind of having, I guess, interactive elements that can change with people owning different pieces. They just announced Async Music. So long story short, I don't really know all the technical aspects of it, but there's going to be the ability for people to buy different pieces and recompose the song So like they could take the Royce verse and be like, yeah, we're getting that off there. We're saving that for the Grammy track, and just, leave your verse on and add some other verse, and and build the song themselves, or change the drum line or the vibe of the whole track. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline, and from your track record, I wouldn't be surprised to see you on the other side coming out with some innovation stuff with the team that's working on it. So excited to see what you do down the line.
Oh yeah, I mean, if this was a tech talk and not more so NFT focused, and it was actually more private, I actually work a lot in that space. I'm at MIT for a reason, and so there's a lot of forward things in terms of music, and even from again, I'm on a 10-year delay, right? So there's a lot of things that I see that are going to happen in the music space, and kind of want to be in front or on the side of, and see them that are above and beyond, like just customization, optimization for certain things, as certain technologies get up to a certain, so there's things that are laying dormant waiting for certain technological advances to kind of happen at scale, that are going to come into play, which are going to just transform the music business 100%. Like, it's going to flip this shit completely upside down, and there's going to be a response, so I actually see, and this is my kind of, again, another little bit of a 10-year delay, speaking to you from the future type shit. Have a certain relationship to the analog world. There is something to the analog space that you shouldn't just overlook totally for the sake of a digital complete immersion, right? Because there will be responses, to certain things, and as certain things plateau, as certain things get a little bit too big for their own britches, there will be retractions. There will be constrictions and constraints that are going to occur, that are going to make those analog things that people overlook extremely valuable. You look at baseball cards now, or football cards now, and things that are happening right now, Pokemon and shit like that, where there is a heavy amount of which to me is just response to a digital kind of wave, right? People wanting an analog experience, and not just a digital experience, not just an AR experience, but a physical experience. And that's still going to be happening in concert with all this digital stuff. So if you really want to be, killing it, make sure that you're immersed in both. Don't cut off one for the other. But yeah, man, a lot of dope shit coming down the pipe technologically for music. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to be in the audience with, also happy to be on stage with as well. So we'll see.
I feel like you're trying to lead me like to some alpha, and I got to figure it out and decode it, because there's something big that you're working on. And so a little bit of alpha for the whale community, guys. Be sure to be on the analog too. In fact, a lot of people are dropping NFTs that are tied to the physical piece in some regards. Some painters and people that have physical pieces and NFTs that exist in the metaverse. Right, they're in crypto voxels and they're hanging on their wall. So there's a lot of cool stuff to come. But it sounds like you can't talk about it, but you want to. But I'm sure we'll be hearing about it. I guess in 10 years, that's the pattern, right? 10 years. So I'm gonna tell everybody, if they're interested, to definitely check out your personal site. And I thought this was really cool. So the site for the NFT drop is tied to your personal site. It's not on like a third-party platform. Like, you're really in this. So this is part of lupefiasco.com. The NFT drop is on April 12th, and also taking part in this dope show on April 15th to celebrate the anniversary of Food and Liquor. So hyped. I'm going to be there. I know 10 people from the whale community are going to be there. I think you'll be there.
I might be there. I might show up. Right. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah. Any guests we should be on the lookout for?
Man, it's Food and Liquor. It's Food and Liquor, baby.
All right.
All you getting is food and liquor. That's all.
Okay.
No. I don't want to spoil it, man. I don't want to blow it for folks.
Okay, yeah, we got some surprises. This one will come sooner than 10 years though. So thank you so much for joining us today. Great conversation, and it was super impressive to see how in tune you are with some of the concerns and other sides of this whole, paradigm shift that's happening with digital and with NFTs, and to hear that you're really coming at it from a perspective where there's a lot of thought and whatnot put into it. So again, thank you for joining us. We're hyped for this show, and we're hyped for the drop.
Man, appreciate you. Thank you, Well FM, for having me. And yeah, man, I'll be around. I'll see you April 15th. Oh
All
no,
right, see you.
I'll see you April 12th.
You will see me.
All right, man.
All right, have a good one.
All right, you too, brother.